name is Shamar Yah,
Darashia.
my brother Darash. Tonight we're going to be going over Nicanor, the Feast of Nicanor, who Nicanor was and why we keep this feast, why it was commemorated. We're going to start off in 1 Maccabees chapter 7 and verse 5. A lot of history. He's a very wicked man. Go ahead.
First Maccabees chapter 7 and verse 5. There came unto him all the wicked and ungodly men of Israel, having Alchemists, who was desirous to be high priest for their captain.
I'm sorry, start at verse 1 so they know who we're talking about.
In the 101 and 50th year of Demetrius, the son of Seleucus, departed from Rome and came up with a few men unto a city of the seacoast and reigned there.
Okay, and then when verse 5, drop down to verse 5.
There came unto him all the wicked and ungodly men of Israel, having Alchemists, who was desirous to be high priest for their captain.
So all the wicked men of Israel, and the most wicked was made the captain, Alchemists. They all came together, came to Demetrius. Go ahead.
And they accused the people to the king, saying, Judas and his brethren have slain all thy friends and driven us out of our own land.
So they tried to come up with something to win Demetrius over into being for their part, so that they can have an occasion to go against Judas. To go against Judas and have the political power that Demetrius had behind them. Drop down to verse 9.
Verse 9. And him he sent with the wicked Alchemists, whom he made high priest, and commanded that he should take vengeance on the children of Israel. So they departed and came with a great power into the land of Judea, where they sent messengers to Judas and his brethren with peaceable words deceitfully.
So he said he made him high priest. Verse 9, he said whom he made high priest. So Alchemist got what he was looking for. Demetrius set him up. So like I said, it's just like the wicked of our nation that go into Esau looking for political power or looking to be crowned. Oh, make me high priest, massa. It's just like that. You know, the people that go into Esau often against their own people. That's the crazy part. I can see if you just wanted a position to be able to change or orchestrate, hungry for power in your own right. He said, man, he wanted to go against his own. Go ahead.
Verse 11. But they gave no heed to their words, for they saw that they were come with a great power.
So he came down with a big army. He's spoken to the people deceitfully, saying, oh, nothing's going to happen. But they said, man, you didn't bring an army for no reason. Drop down to verse 14.
Verse 14. For said they, one that is a priest of the seed of Aaron is come with this army, and he will do us no wrong.
So they were they trusted in the Most High to say, well, you know, a priest has come with him. So if it was really like that, I'm sure this man wouldn't be standing with them being a high priest. But even Jesus had a Judas. Jesus had a Judas. Unfortunately, the unfortunate reality is you can't always trust people that are in fringes. You can't always trust people that are claiming to keep the law. You can't, there are false brethren that will sneak in unawares, and no one is exempt from that. Even Yahushua himself was not exempt. Drop down to verse 16.
Verse 16. Whereupon they believed him, howbeit he took of them 80 men, and slew them in one day, according to the words which he wrote.
Go to verse 23.
Verse 23. Now when Judas saw all the mischief that Alchemist and his company had done among the Israelites, even above the heathen.
Even among the heathen. He said they was worse than the heathen doing these things. And they was doing it to their own brethren. Go ahead.
He went out into all the coast of Judea round about and took vengeance of them that had revolted from him. So they durst no more go forth into the country.
So he went and was avenged of his own wrath, but he avenged his brethren. Because you read on, Alchemist had killed 70 men, and then he had drowned, I think, a few hundred others. So Judas went and he avenged his brethren. Go ahead.
On the other side, when Alchemist saw that Judas and his company had gotten the upper hand and knew that he was not able to abide their force, he went again to the king and said all the worst of them that he could.
So he went back to the king, looking for more power, looking for more soldiers, making up worse lies. Said, man, it's worse than we thought. Them 5,000 or however many you sent the first time, that wasn't enough. I need more, or they're coming for you next. Just saying anything to rile them up and get a reaction out of him so that he'll give him that power. But what did he do? Verse 26.
Verse 26, then the king sent Nicanor, one of his honorable princes, a man that bare deadly hate unto Israel, with commandment to destroy the people.
He said, I'm letting Nicanor off the leash. Somebody else might mess around and have a conscience. Somebody else might mess around and let somebody slip off. He said, Nicanor is not going to do that. Nicanor is going to destroy those people. He has a deadly hatred for the Jews. Go ahead, keep reading.
So Nicanor came to Jerusalem with a great force and sent unto Judas and his brethren deceitfully with friendly words, saying, let there be no battle between me and you. I will come with a few men, that I may see you in peace.
Go ahead, but when he speaketh fair, believeth him not. Go ahead.
He came therefore to Judas, and they saluted one another peaceably. Howbeit the enemies were prepared to take away Judas by violence.
So they was ready. They set up an ambush. They were trying to catch Judas in a different environment because they knew that was the only way they was going to get him. Continue on from there.
Which thing after it was known to Judas to wit, that he came unto him with deceit, he was sore afraid of him, and would see his face no more. Nicanor also, when he saw that his counsel was discovered, went out to fight against Judas beside Kafar Salamah.
So he said, okay, well, obviously the ambush is not going to work. The jig is up. So it's just time for all-out war. He just went in. Go ahead.
Where there were slain of Nicanor's side about 5,000 men, and the rest fled into the city of David.
So 5,000 of them died, and whatever remained, they had to run. So that's how Judas is putting, the wicked, and that's the glory that Israel had once we were keeping the commandments and really believing and following the Most High against the other nations. Don't the scriptures say you shall go up against your enemies and they shall be scattered 7 ways before you? So this is really a real life example of when that was happening. Go ahead.
After this went Nicanor up to Mount Zion, and there came out of the sanctuary certain of the priests and certain of the elders of the people to salute him peaceably and to show him the burnt sacrifices that are offered for the king.
So they came out peacefully. Nicanor was he said a respected prince, so he was a public official. It's like somebody like a celebrity coming to your restaurant. Go ahead and give him the works. He's like, oh, this is what we doing in the temple. These are sacrifices. But what did he do?
But he mocked them and laughed at them and abused them shamefully and spake proudly.
And it says, the scriptures don't get, well, I can't say that they don't get specific, but it's not specific in this instance as to what Nicanor did to the priest. It just says he abused them. But knowing that he was an Edomite, it ain't no telling what he was doing to those priests, having a deadly hate to Israel, because he let them live. So you know how, what's that like in movies, there's something worse than death, and then they take something from you or they do something to you. He was literally in that state of mind against the priest. And you just have to realize how much hatred he had for the Most High to do that to priests of all people. Because he's like, oh, I know y'all special to the Most High. Y'all are chosen of the chosen. I'm going to do something horrible to them. You have to just think or just imagine what he was doing to them. Go ahead, read on.
Verse 35, and swear in his wrath, saying, unless Judas and his host be now delivered into my hands, if ever I come again in safety, I will burn up this house. And with that, he went out in a great rage.
He said, man, F this temple. If I ever come back, I'm tearing it up. Like, that's the kind of man he was. That's exact. Just boldly speaking against the Most High, abusing the priests. He had no shame. Go ahead.
Then the priest entered in and stood before the altar and the temple, weeping and saying, Thou, O Lord, didst choose this house to be called by thy name, and to be a house of prayer and petition for thy people. Be avenged of this man and his host, and let them fall by the sword. Remember their blasphemies, and suffer them not to continue any longer.
So he said they prayed to the Most High. He said weeping for whatever it is that happened to him, weeping for the situation and also for the potential of it happening to the other of their brethren. He said, man, Lord, please let this man die. You ever been offended so much you just feel like that person can't live? Have somebody walk away, you just like, can't believe he just over there happy and comfortable after what they did to me. Priest came before the altar. They said, please, Lord, be avenged of this man. if we continue on, it's going to go into his death, but I don't want to cut the story short. Let's go to 2 Maccabees 12 and 2. I want to really paint a picture as to like why we celebrate this man's death, why we celebrate, you know, that we're still here as a nation and that the Most High was avenged of his enemies. 2 Maccabees 12 and 2.
2 Maccabees chapter 12 and verse 2. But of the governors of several places, Timotheus and
I'm sorry, read verse 1.
When these covenants were made, Lysias went unto the king, and the Jews were about their husbandry.
So they were about the husbandry. It's like farming, tilling the land. They was doing them comfortable. Go ahead.
Verse 2. But the governors of several places, Timotheus and Apollonius, the son of Genius, and Hieronymus and Demophon, and beside them Nicanor, the governor of Cyprus, would not suffer them to be quiet and live in peace.
They wasn't even doing nothing. So they was just in the fields, just trying to make a way to survive, trying to just do them. Same way that you see these Edomites harassing Jakes for having barbecues. Karens calling the police because Jakes is in the park. It's just stupid stuff. Like, man, they really will not allow us to have peace, even amongst ourselves. Like, not bothering nobody. Go ahead.
The men of Joppa also did such an ungodly deed. They prayed the Jews that dwelt among them to go with their wives and children into the boats which they had prepared, as though they had meant them no hurt.
So they was like, go ahead.
Who accepted of it according to the common decree of the city, as being desirous to live in peace and suspecting nothing. But when they were gone forth into the deep, they drowned no less than 200 of them.
Set them up. They was like, y'all want peace? Man, whatever, I don't know, whatever it was that they told them to get them onto the boats. Ended up getting them out to deep sea and then drowning them. Just total wickedness. All because what was they doing? What were the Jews doing? Because we in the fields? Because we out here leaving y'all alone? They have a hatred. That's why a lot of times, man, the scriptures say, if it be possible, live at peace with all men. And oftentimes, sometimes we do wish that we could have peace in this life. We don't want to have to go into the scriptures, the things that the scriptures talk about, the tribulation, the war, the nation rising against this nation. But when you read these scriptures, that nation will never allow us to have peace. There is no hands up, no peace. There no hands up, don't shoot. They are going to continue war with us for as long as they exist. So the only solution is for somebody to go. Crazy part about it, they say war brings peace. Because whoever was adversarial is no longer in the picture. How many times have we marched, protested, street talk? Has the violence stopped? Has Esau repented? Okay, then it's got to be a war. Where we at? Verse 5? Verse 5.
When Judas heard of this cruelty done unto his countrymen, he commanded those that were with him to make them ready. And calling upon God, the righteous judge, he came against those murderers of his brethren and burnt the haven by night and set the boats on fire, and those that fled thither he slew.
So he was like, I can't believe that they did this. We're going to get them tonight. Went out there, he burned everything up. He said, anybody that was seen running, he said, go get them. Don't let them get up. Don't let them get away. No one's living. Drop down to verse 10.
Verse 10. Now when they were gone from thence 9 furlongs in their journey toward Timotheus, no fewer than 5,000 men on foot and 500 horsemen of the Arabians set upon him.
So they heard everything that was going on. He sent 5,500 people after him. Go ahead.
Whereupon there was a very sore battle, but Judas' side, by the help of God, got the victory, so that the nomads of Arabia, being overcame, besought Judas for peace, promising both to give him cattle and to pleasure him otherwise.
So they said, okay, first they went after him. It was a very sore battle. They ended up getting whooped. They was like, oh, what can we do? How can we work this out? We could talk. Have we tried talking? Then they said, okay, well, do you want these oxen? We'll pay taxes. We'll do this. We'll do that. They said they tried to make a deal. Now they're trying to cop out. And mind you, actually, drop down to verse 14.
Verse 14. But they that were within it put such trust in the strength of the walls and provisions of victuals.
I'm sorry, go back up to verse 12 because it's important to understand this verse 14. Go ahead.
Then Judas, thinking indeed that they would be profitable in many things, granted them peace. Whereupon they shook hands, and so they departed to their tents. He went also about to make a bridge to a certain strong city, which was fenced about with walls and inhabited by people of diverse countries. And the name of it was Caspis. But they that were within it put such trust in the strength of the walls and provisions of the victuals that they behaved themselves rudely toward them that were with Judas, railing and blaspheming and uttering such words as were not to be spoken.
They was disrespecting them. It said saying stuff that you just don't say. That's how much, because they was like, well, we in this big old wall. I seen Judas out there putting these other nations to, he ain't doing that to us. We got our wall. Go ahead.
Wherefore Judas with his company, calling upon the great Lord of the world, who without any rams or engines or war did cast down Jericho in the time of Joshua,
About Jericho. Go ahead.
Gave a fierce assault against the walls, and took the city by the will of God, and made unspeakable slaughters.
Unspeakable slaughters. So you got to think the scriptures talk about 5,000 here, 5,000 there. They said there was unspeakable slaughters. Go ahead.
In so much that a lake 2 furlongs broad, near adjoining thereunto, being filled full, was seen running with blood.
So a furlong is estimated about 660 feet. So it was 2 furlongs. So what is that? 1,300 feet. 1,320 feet. Yeah, 1,320 feet. So they were seen running with blood, thousands of feet of blood. But all these attacks, all these people, allies of Nicanor. Remember, because Nicanor didn't act by himself. In 12 and 2, it named a couple of different people. So these nations were all in confederate against Israel, all in one in cahoots and coming against Israel. But all these attacks were orchestrated by Nicanor. But I'm sorry. Go to First Ezra's 8 and 83, because one of the things that happened, it said that the Jews would refuse to be at peace, or excuse me, they were not allowed to be at peace. And that's something I want to bring out, because oftentimes it's completely understandable, because I'm a Jake myself. I can't sit up here and act as if it's something foreign. A lot of times we just want peace. Even our forefather Jacob, the first Israelite, he said he was a simple man dwelling in tents. Jake just liked to chill. Jake's want a little drink, a little food. Even in this hell, as there are hundreds of us being killed, thousands of us by the year, babies aborted, all this hell that we endure, plus the brutality, the statistic that people don't focus on is when it's over brutalized and it's not an actual death. A lot of the rallies are just for the ones that died. That's not to include the people that got broken bones and bursted organs and all this other kind of stuff. A lot of times we do want peace, but the scripture said the Most High gave us a warning about that. First Ezra 8 and 83.
83?
83, yes, sir.
First Ezra chapter 8 and verse 83. That the land which ye enter into to possess as an heritage is a land polluted with the pollutions of the strangers of the land, and they have filled it with their uncleanness. Therefore now shall ye not join your daughters unto their sons, neither shall ye take their daughters unto your sons.
So first and foremost, we're not going to have no interracial marriages. That stuff that's being pushed in America, none of that is flying in a righteous Israel. Go ahead.
Moreover, ye shall never seek to have peace with them.
Ye shall never. He said never. You can never have peace with them. You saw when we had peace and we thought that they was doing their thing and we doing our thing and the priests making sacrifices for the king. We feel like what have we done? Said you can never have peace with them. There will not be peace. That man will not allow us to be in peace. We try to live peaceably. We've tried the marching. We've tried the hands up, don't shoot. We've tried so much as a people to be able to just find that peace. And then those that can't find the peace or realize that it's not going to be possible, try to drink it away or smoke it away or sex it away and deal with all these problems. But ultimate reality is, as long as that man exists, we will not have peace. Go ahead.
Moreover, ye shall never seek to have peace with them, that ye may be strong.
That ye may be strong. That you're not going to say, what about the white man? That you're not going to be worried about your white girlfriend or your mixed kids. You going to be strong. You going to see, like, during segregation, it was nothing for our people to know who their enemies were because there were white diners, white bars, white-only water fountains. Integration is the worst thing that could have happened for our people because now we're confused on who our enemies are. Now we looking at each other. This nigga might be on some BS. Let me see what that nigga on. I'm your brother. How did I become your enemy? When have I ever put you in chains? When have I ever, beat your people or made you pick cotton? And how is now the white man the most common person that our people are vouching for? After all of these things, he said, man, don't join yourself unto him. Don't integrate with them. Don't send your kids with their kids to school. Let them be friends and say you don't see color. He said, don't ever seek peace. Go ahead.
That ye may be strong and eat the good things of the land, and that ye may leave the inheritance of your land unto your children forevermore.
And so that you have something to give to your children. Because everything that the Jews have, first and foremost, everything that Jakes have in the first place, Esau wants a piece of. On BET, found in Black Lives Matter, we can't never have nothing where Edomites just stay out of it. But he said, that the same thing goes with your inheritance. They can obviously snoop in and claim a piece of that as well. But he said, man, separate yourself from these nations. Rely on your fellow man. That's what's going to make you strong. From genetically to mentally, spiritually. Israel in unison, the prayers of a righteous man availeth much. Israel in unison, and we could change the world. The Most High heard Israel when we came together as a nation and fasted because we were in unison. Couldn't be no strangers amongst us. Go to 2 Maccabees 14. Start at verse. Start at verse 8.
14 and 8.
Yes, 14 and 8. 10.
2 Maccabees chapter 14 and verse 10. 10 right now.
10.
For as long as Judas liveth, it is not possible that the state should be quiet. This is no sooner spoken of him, but others of the king's friends, being maliciously set against Judas, did more incense Demetrius.
So basically, they're getting incense is to be inflamed with rage. So they're basically just pissing him off. They're trying to talk about Judas in order to get him upset, so that he continues to send more and more of his army, and he continues in this battle against Judas until Judas dies. Go ahead. Verse 12.
And forthwith calling Nicanor, who had been master of the elephants and making his governor over Judea, he sent him forth, commanding him to slay Judas and to scatter them that were with him, and to make Alchemist high priest of the great temple.
So he sent in Nicanor. Once again, let him off the leash. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Actually, it's going to explain itself.
Then the heathen that had fled out of Judea from Judas came to Nicanor by flocks, thinking the harm and calamities of the Jews to be their welfare.
And that goes into the other heathen. A lot of people like to say, well, what about this nation? What about this? And all lives matter. They're only waiting for their opportunity. They're waiting for your downfall. They are waiting for a time to strike. You'd have to be a fool to have an enemy in a position of power over you and say, wait till I get strong, and then I'll never let you be strong. But all these other nations, they was like, oh, y'all going against the Jews? Man, it would be nice to have them slaves. Man, it would be nice to have this and to have that. I did see this Jew. Remember that Jew I told you about that lives over that mountain? He got the nicest field and it's right by the river. I could use that. If he dies, I can take it. They joined themselves unto our enemies. Go ahead.
Now, when the Jews heard of Nicanor's coming, and that the heathen were up against them, they cast earth upon their heads and made supplications to him that had established his people forever, and who always helpeth his portion with manifestation of his presence.
Drop down to 18. So they put their faith in the Most High and they humbled themselves. Go ahead.
Nevertheless, Nicanor, hearing of the manliness of them that were with Judas, and the courageousness that they had to fight for their country, durst not try to matter by the sword.
So he already knew to be cunning. He said, man, there ain't no way in the world I'm going to be able to overthrow these dudes by force. There's no way in the world that I'm going to be able to, man to man. And, we always say that, like, when you talking about Israel, how we're the greatest on earth. And any Jake, I'm not going to say any old, just regular off the street Jake, but, every time you look at the Edomite, you're like, man, ain't no real threat. We be more afraid of what each other are going to do because we understand the power that lies in another Israelite than we are what the heathen are going to do, at least in what I've seen. Drop down to verse 22.
Verse 22. Judas placed armed men ready in convenient places, lest some treachery should be suddenly practiced by the enemies.
So they was trying to have another meeting, or they was trying to have a meeting, and he was like, all right, well, y'all stay ready just in case. Go ahead.
So they made a peaceable conference. Now Nicanor abode in Jerusalem and did no hurt, but sent away the people that came flocking unto him.
So Nicanor went to see what he had to say. Go ahead.
And he would not willingly have Judas out of his sight, for he loved the man from his heart.
And don't the scripture say, if a man's ways please the Lord, even his enemies will be at peace with him? And Nicanor is coming to have this meeting. So, man, he started to have love for him. Go ahead.
He prayed him also to take a wife and to beget children. So he married, was quiet, and took part of this life.
So you see, you offered him that peace. Go ahead.
But Alchemists, perceiving the love that was betwixt them,
It be your own people. I ain't gonna say what I really want to say. But y'all know what I was getting at. It be your own. Nicanor was like, man, hey, leave him alone. Not that bad. I had to talk with him. He wasn't that bad. Alchemist was like, damn, they giving up the fight. Go ahead.
and considering the covenants that were made, came to Demetrius and told him that Nicanor was not well affected toward the state, for that he had ordained Judas a traitor to his realm to be the king's successor.
You got to give those pauses so they can understand it. Start back at the semicolon.
For that he had ordained Judas a traitor to his realm to be the king's successor.
So they was talking about Nicanor. They said, man, he's ordained Judas. They having a good time. It's no longer a problem amongst them. Go ahead, verse 27.
Then the king, being enraged and provoked with the accusation, the most wicked man wrote to Nicanor, signifying that he was much displeased with the covenants and commanding him.
Hold on, stop at the comma. So he said, so Nicanor had ended up making covenants. That's why Alchemist went to Demetrius and he said he's a traitor of his realm. He's ordained Judas. He has some favor towards him. So Demetrius heard these things and he was upset about it. He said, man, I can't believe you trying to make peace or being cool with Judas and his brethren. Go ahead.
And commanding him that he should send MACCABEES prisoner in all haste unto Antioch.
So you better do something. Go ahead.
And this came to Nicanor's hearing. He was much confounded in himself, and took it grievously that he should make void the articles which were agreed upon, the man being in no fault.
He said, man, he's like, damn, I still have to do it. He said, I really don't see a problem with him. I really don't see anything that he's doing wrong to where I feel like I just got to do this. So he said, man, it sucks, but he had to do it. Go ahead.
But because there was no dealing against the king, he watched his time to accomplish this thing by policy.
Don't the scripture say he frameth mischief by law? It's going to be illegal to gather on Saturdays. They're like, what? Hey, it's the law. You know how Edomites do. It's the law. They love being able to pull that card on Jake so that they can get whatever it is that they really want out of that situation. Make it difficult. Well, if you're a convict or a felon, you can't own a firearm. If you've had this happen to you, you can't own a firearm. Next thing you know, they locking up Jakes on false charges. Can't get things expunged off your record. And then when you realize that these are really your enemies and you start waking up to this truth or start waking up to, understanding that, man, there ain't going to be no peace. Well, you can't own a firearm. It's the law. All right. Framing mischief by law. So he started putting laws in place that he clearly knew were a disadvantage that Judas clearly wasn't going to go for, so that by breaking of, so-called man's law, Judas, he could find a fault in Judas and be like, well, he did it. He's the one who broke off these covenants, not me. Go ahead.
Verse 30. Notwithstanding, when Maccabees saw that Nicanor began to be churlish unto him, and that he entreated him more roughly than he was wont, perceiving that such sour behavior came not of good, he gathered together not a few of his men and withdrew himself from Nicanor.
So he realized Nicanor started acting different. He like, hey man, what's up? Damn. So I was just seeing how you doing. I'm good. Oh, okay. So he's like, all right, I'm starting to see something in his behavior has clearly changed. He's not the same dude that I was talking to when we was making peace and he was telling me to take a wife and so. Say, hey y'all, it's time to get out of here. I feel something is off. I don't know what it is, but clearly he's behaving himself way differently. Go ahead.
Verse 31. But the other, knowing that he was notably prevented by Judas's policy, came into the great and holy temple and commanded the priests that were offering their usual sacrifices to deliver him the man. And when they swear that they could not tell where the man was whom he sought, he stretched out his right hand toward the people and made an oath in this manner: if ye will not deliver me Judas as a prisoner, I will lay this temple of God even with the ground, and I will break down the altar and erect a notable temple unto Bacchus.
So he said, hey, look, I'm looking for Judas. The priest said, oh, we don't know where to find him. So he got all pissed off, threw a fit, stretched out his right arm, and that's an important component. He said, I will level this house of God. First and foremost, what did that have to do with the Most High? But when you have hatred for the Most High, you'll find any excuse to turn your back on the Most High. And even in people with the truth. People, oh, I just can't do this. I just can't, my whatever excuse they find. The cares of the world choke that seed. Cares of the world choke that growth. People swear they spouses is so wicked, they gotta separate. What they gotta do with you keeping the laws? Gotta leave the house. Camps be so wicked, I can't do the camps. Then why you not keeping the feast days? Why you not wearing fringes? Where's your head coverings? Why you got on pants? People looking for an excuse to turn on the Most High. And that goes for any nation and every nation. The wicked is the wicked, and Satan loves his own. Go ahead.
Verse 34, after these words he departed. Then the priests lifted up their hands toward heaven and besought him that was ever a defender of their nation, saying in this manner: Thou, O Lord of all things, who has need of nothing, was pleased that the temple of thine habitation should be among us. Therefore, O holy Lord of all holiness, keep this house ever undefiled, which lately was cleansed, and stop every unrighteous mouth.
So they said, man, please, Most High, don't allow this to be so. Crazy part about it, I believe it was in a previous chapter. I recommend reading the story throughout its entirety, or maybe I have it in the scriptures that's coming later. But it said in one of the battles when they was going forward, said the men that were out, all they were concerned with was the temple. So they had wives and children, but it said, but the thing that they cared for most was the temple of the Most High. So it's like, man, that's a great sense of faith. It also shows how many victories they were getting. Statistically speaking, these battles were impossible wins. You have the 300 that went with Gideon, but what was his name? Zerubbabel or Jerubbaal? I believe it was Jerubbaal, but better known as Gideon. You have battles in impossible odds. It just goes, man, it's the Most High. The children of Israel ain't nothing without the Most High. As much as we can sit up here and talk about how strong we are, how quick we build muscle, all this different kind of stuff that's going on with us, without the Most High, we are nothing. Read on from where we were.
Verse 37. Now was there accused to Nicanor one Rhesus, one of the elders of Jerusalem, a lover of his countrymen, and a man of very good report, who for his kindness was called the father of the Jews.
So this is a very good man. He had a good report. He had a good name. It said he was so kind to his brethren, he was called the father of the Jews. Like everybody dad. That one cool dude, like, hey, what's up, Uncle Whoopty Whoop? It was like, man, what's up, Father Razzus? Just a cool brother. Go ahead.
For in the former times, when they mingled not themselves with the Gentiles, he had been accused of Judaism, and did boldly jeopard his body and life with all vehemency for the religion of the Jews.
So he stood strong in the truth. It said that he what word did he use? Jeopardy. He put his body and his life in jeopardy. But he was like, man, I'm standing in this law. Go ahead.
So Nicanor, willing to declare the hate that he bare unto the Jews sent above 500 men of war to take him.
So he was like, man, see, that's what I'm saying. Nicanor, what did Razes have to do with anything? Razes was old. He wasn't going into battle. He wasn't a general. He was just somebody that was of a good name in Israel. Literally had nothing to do with anything that was happening as far as Nicanor was concerned. I haven't heard of Razes before this. Razes didn't do anything to him. That's why I say, like, man, we really have to consider who is safe as long as that man lives. Like, that's like John Wick levels. You know about John Wick? Like, I've heard, everybody got their stories. That's literally the story of Esau. Like, as long as he's out there, none of us are safe. That is literally the story of Esau. But in this instance, it was Nicanor in particular. Go ahead.
For he thought by taking him to do the Jews much hurt.
All he wanted to do was be able to hurt him. How much hatred do you have to have for somebody? He said, I may not even be able to get you, but I just want to damage you psychologically. I just want you to have a bad day. I just want to do something petty to be able to just hurt you. One way or another, I'm going to be able to get to you. It's hatred. He said he was bold in his hatred. Where we at?
41.
Actually, continue on. I want to read about Razes.
Now when the multitude would have taken the tower and violently broken into the outer door and bade that fire should be brought to burn it, he being ready to be taken on every side fell upon his sword, choosing rather to die manfully.
Hold on, we skipped some stuff. I know we didn't. Go ahead.
Choosing rather to die manfully than to come into the hands of the wicked, to be abused otherwise than beseemed his noble birth.
So obviously they were coming up. They were, it was the army. They were working for Nicanor. Like I said, the scriptures might not have gotten into the particulars, but there's no telling what was going to happen. And oftentimes, it's funny, I was talking to, I think it was Yashimai the other day. He was like, man, when it comes to Esau, it's better to find death than to fall into his hands. It's going to be a bitter death. So Razes was like, man, I'm not about to let him just come up here and abuse me. He said, I'd rather just fall on my sword and get it over with. Go ahead.
But missing his stroke through haste, the multitude also rushing within the doors, he ran boldly up to the wall and cast himself down manfully among the thickest of them.
So he did Assassin's Creed style. If you've ever played the game, you know what I'm talking about. He jumped, he going down. He said, I just a big old clump of them. I'm going to get somebody. Go ahead.
But they quickly giving back and a space being made, he fell down into the midst of the void place.
So unfortunately, they looked up, realized what was happening, and in the time that it took from him, or from the time that he had jumped to the time he hit the ground, they had enough time to be able to move, and he hit the ground as opposed to being able to slay a few of his enemies before he died. Go ahead.
Nevertheless, while there was yet breath within him, being inflamed with anger, he rose up, and through his blood gushed out, and though his blood gushed out like spouts of water, and his wounds were grievous, yet he ran through the midst of the throng, and standing upon a steep rock.
So he was dying, obviously. He hadn't completely died. They say his blood was coming out of him like water. You see that like in the movies, or some of people may have seen that in real life. It just shoots out. So, and he had did I already talk about his guts? It said his wounds were grievous. Go ahead.
When as his blood was now quite gone,
So he was bleeding out quick. So he climbed a rock. He was bleeding out. Go ahead.
he plucked out his bowels, and taking them in both his hands, he cast them upon a throng, and calling upon the Lord of life and spirit to restore him those again, he thus died.
So I believe the throng, it said that was the throng is what opened up. So he threw his guts on the people, the soldiers, the people that were there to come get him. And he said, I've trusted the Most High that I'm going to be restored these things, and I'll have another chance at this. Drop down to verse 15. We're going to shoot through these real quick. We're going to get 1 through, actually just start at verse 1. I'll tell you when to stop.
But Nicanor, hearing that Judas and his company were in strong places about Samaria, resolved without any danger to set upon them on the Sabbath day. Nevertheless, the Jews that were compelled to go with him said, "Oh, destroy, not so cruelly and barbarously."
So he said, the Sabbath day, anything y'all choose, anything that's special, anything you like, I'm going to take it. I'm going to go get Razes. I'm going to destroy this temple. I'm going to come while y'all, the little bit of time that y'all have to rest, I'm going to be there. Go ahead.
But give honor to that day, which he that seeth all things hath honored with holiness above other days.
So he said, come on, dude. Like, he said, this is the Most High's day. Don't come over here with the battle on today. He said, I know we enemies, but if you're going to do anything, just give us this day. Go ahead.
Then the most ungracious wretch demanded if there were a mighty one in heaven, that he commanded the Sabbath day to be kept.
So he said, if there, you know how people do that, and we don't realize how wicked that is. That's tempting the Most High. Well, if there's a God, then he'll stop me. Woo, that's a cold line. That's some blasphemy. That's some hella disrespect. He said, there's a God, your Sabbath day will be kept. Now people do that. I've seen so many atheists that I've debated or talked to so many different people. Well, I'm going to drop this pin, and if there's a God, it'll be caught. That's no different what Nicanor was doing. He said, if your God really values this day, I know he'll protect it, right? Go ahead.
And when they said,
drop down to verse 6.
Verse 6.
Oh, no, actually, keep reading from there. I'm sorry.
Verse 4. And when they said, there is in heaven a living Lord and mighty, who commanded the seventh day to be kept. Then said the other, and I also am mighty upon earth, and I command to take arms.
So they was like, well, the Most High, the mighty one of heaven, has demanded that we keep this day. He said, well, I'm God on earth. I'm him where he at right now. I don't see anybody. He said, I see me, and I'm saying we gonna fight. Go ahead.
And to do the king's business. Yet he obtained not to have this his wicked will done.
Okay. Verse 6.
So Nicanor, in exceeding pride and haughtiness, determined to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas and them that were with him.
So he thought, once again, hatred of the Jews, and he wanted this to be known. Didn't have it a secret. Wasn't no secret hatred. He said everybody's going to know. Go ahead.
But Maccabees had ever sure confidence that the Lord would help him. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty.
So he trusted in the Most High. He said, man, look, at the end of the day, whether we live, we die, the scriptures say the Most High makes alive and he kills. He heals and he wounds. He said, man, we got to trust in the Most High. I know how it looks. I know we're outnumbered. And that's why I say the children of Israel aren't anything without the Most High, because if it's not for the Most High interfering with these battles, or rather being on our side, you know, even the heathen knew that we wouldn't prosper if that wasn't the case. Drop down to verse 24.
Verse 24. And through the might of thine arm, let those be stricken with terror that come against thy holy people to blaspheme. And he ended thus.
So he's talking about a dream that he had. The dream is rather lengthy, and it doesn't particularly pertain to Nicanor. It is something I would definitely recommend reading, and it's definitely something inspiring. But for the sake of time, we're going to drop down to this part of the lesson when the actual battle ensued. Go ahead.
Then Nicanor and they that were with him came forward with trumpets and songs, and Judas and his company encountered the enemies with invocation and prayer.
So Nicanor, they was coming with the beats. They had trumpets and song. Judas and them was praying. They came with the spirit of the Most High. Go ahead.
So the fighting with their hands and the praying unto God with their hearts, they slew no less than 35,000 men.
35,000 in one day. Big battle. 35,000. Go ahead.
For through the appearance of God, they were greatly cheered.
Trusting in the Most High. It's really all it boils down to. Like I said, it has a lot to do with the character. It has a lot to do with your faith in the Most High. But if the Most High is not with us, then we are not going to succeed. As simple as that. Go ahead.
Now when the battle was done, returning with joy, they knew that Nicanor lay dead in his harness.
They got him. Finally, after all the things that he did, all the things that he orchestrated, everything that he stirred up, and all the armies that he sent, and the political power that he abused, they finally got him. Go ahead.
Then they made a great shout and a noise, praising the Almighty in their own language. And Judas, who was ever the chief defender of the citizens, both in body and mind, and who continued his love toward the countrymen all of his life, commanded to strike off Nicanor's head and his hand with his shoulder and bring them to Jerusalem. So when he was there and had called them of his nation together and set the priests before the altar, he sent for them that were of the tower, and showed them vile Nicanor's head and the hand of that blasphemer, which with proud brags he had stretched out against the holy temple of the Almighty.
So remember that thing you used to do? That's like they mocked him. They cut his head off. They was mafia style, and they dismembered his arm, cut off his arm. They said, remember this right hand he used to always stretch out? This is it. They just got the arm. This is it. He dead. That's it. Drop down to verse 36.
Verse
So
36.
They made made an example out of him. Go ahead.
Verse 36. And they ordained all with a common decree in no case to let that day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate the 13th day of the 12th month, which is in the Syrian tongue is called Adar, the day before Mordecai's day.
So in they basically made a decree because Nicanor had plagued the people, and I'm not entirely sure of the timeline. It was obviously quite a while because of all the things that he was doing, but you just got to think, even if all this would have transpired in a month, it's a very long time to be going through those things where you just have no assurity of your life. But Nicanor had hatred for the Jews. You know, he had a bold hatred for our people, constantly finding anything, just anything, not even just to kill. He said, man, if I could just kill one Razis and touch all of them in some way or another, it's going to affect them somehow. Total hatred for the Jews. And they said they finally was able to kill him. Cut off his head, cut off his arm, and made an example of him. And they said that's why, with all the things that Nicanor did, all of our brethren that we lost through his orders, his army, and his hatred, we need to celebrate that man's death in celebration of the Most High delivering us out of the hands of our enemies. All praises. All praises. So with that, do you have anything you wanted to bring out? Well, then with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it up there, Israel. Again, definitely something to celebrate come this 12th month, 13th day, and Kwame Asharala.